Howdy doody, everybody. Welcome to the Writers Hangout. My name is Konstantine Paradies, and with us today is the OSR man himself, straight from the land of Finland. It is Jim Raggi. Jim, how you doing, man?
Uh, decent, decent.
That's
Thank
uh,
you.
that's
How are you doing?
it's, can't complain. It's busy. It's been busy.
Oh yeah, you can. I'm sure you were perfectly capable.
Oh no, 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 I am, but this is not about me. We could fill an hour just complaining. Uh, So, for anyone that doesn't know and where we're bringing Jim over, the Writers Hangout mostly up to now covered writers. I wanted to expand to people who write across different fields. And one of those fields is TDRPG design because it seems that, everyone and their mom is doing it these days. And I wanted to bring in some actual professionals that actually published work, that are actually ideally running their own business, doing this to kind of like discuss both the process and kind of like the realities of the situation for anyone that wants to dip their toe into this. I know I started kind of rough, but before we get into this, could you give us a brief bio on yourself so people know, you know, who you are, what.
I was born in the U.S., grew up outside New York, moved to Finland in 2005. I am still here. Lamentations of the Flame Princess is the both the name of the company and the game the company publishes. That's been active since 2009 in tabletop role playing, but Lamentations of the Flame Princess was also a heavy metal zine from 1998 to I think 2005 or 2006 might have been the last one that we put out. Uh, and that's the important stuff. What else do you want to know?
I mean, first off, how did you end up on the other side of the pond? You know,
Chasing a woman. Um, but, but,
chicken butt. Go on.
yeah. I'm trying to think. How insane do I want to sound in this interview? I don't know.
No
Because
judgment.
I grew up outside New York, but I ended up living most of my adult life in Atlanta, down south. And, living in the Northeast of the US, there were four seasons every year, and it snowed every winter. In Atlanta, it snowed about once a decade, and it would be considered the storm of the century when it snowed. And there would be like this much snow, and they would shut down the highways, children playing on the freeways and everything. And I was like, this is, because of course they don't have the infrastructure to deal with snow if it only shows up once every 10 years. So, but still, it's like I got to get out of here. I want to go somewhere where there's snow again. And now a sane person would, in a country as large as the United States, move north. Or if you really want to get out of the United States, go to Canada. No, I had the brilliant idea. It's like, no, I'll start flirting with women from Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland. And it worked. And I don't,
Nice.
uh, but there's a slight catch though. A relationship with someone works very differently when you're visiting each other for, a couple weeks, two or three times a year versus living with them. And,
Oh,
and there
absolutely.
and there was no transition between the two. So uh, that 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 did not work quite as well as I had hoped. But I'm still here because the one thing about moving away from the United States is that once you do so, absolutely everything you hear from the United States suddenly sounds like Mad Max. And that was true into 2006, and it just gets more and more true every year. So I go back twice a year at this point just to go to conventions and sell things, and then I come home back here.
I mean, it sounds pretty good. I've only been to Finland for like very briefly on a student exchange program. It's a pretty chill place, and I lived in Savonlinna back when I don't know. Do you live near Helsinki? Do you live near, or
I'm in Helsinki. Yeah.
oh, okay. So you're in the big city. Even that's not too big a city. It's pretty chill
Yeah, well,
as a place.
I when I first moved here, I was living in Vasa, which is a bizarre town on the west coast of Finland. It was about 50,000 people, but it's the place in Finland that has the greatest parity between Finnish and Swedish speakers, because Swedish is a secondary
Oh, so
language.
it's in the Zighailing arm of the Finnish lady part of Finland.
No, 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 further down by the hip.
Okay,
It's
okay,
further
okay,
south than
okay,
that. That's way
okay,
up north.
okay, okay.
See,
Yeah, it's like a
oh,
Zighailing
yeah,
like old woman, right? With a dress. You see it, right?
yeah, I know. But the thing about Vasa, because it's about equally split between Swedish and Finnish speakers, they don't want to speak each other's language. The Swedes want to retain their native language against the overwhelming 95% of Finland is Finnish speaking, and the Finnish speakers are like, well, why do I got to learn that crap? Nobody speaks that. But in this place, because the populations are the most even, it's like two towns that are in the exact same place, but they're independent. Like all the Swedish speakers want to go to the stores that'll greet them in Swedish. All the Finnish speakers want to go to the stores that'll greet them in Finnish, and they'll speak English to each other.
So you went to Kafka Town, essentially. That's what you're
Yeah,
telling me.
yeah. And the integration school I went to was part of. It was a. It was being. It was inside a Swedish religious folk high school. So Vasa is the biggest town for like an hour or two in any direction. So all the people that lived in all the tiny villages, when they wanted, their families wanted to send their kids off to high school in the big city, they go to Vasa, 50,000 people. And it was a Swedish school. So, and because we were in Vasa, the integration school is trying to teach us Swedish and Finnish at the same time, which I'm a stupid American. I don't know any other languages. Now you're going to try to
And
teach
you
me
went for the
two.
hardest one.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing is though, the Finnish teacher was fully fluent in Finnish, don't get me wrong, but she was a native Swedish speaker. So she's teaching us the vocabulary, but the way she's speaking is not the way that Finnish people, like native Finnish speakers, speak. It's a different accent. And my ex was a Swedish speaking Finn. So I was getting like no Finnish. No. And then Swedish, it was the way the villages are and everything. There's like an official normal way of speaking Finnish Swedish, which is different than Swedish Swedish. But then all of the little village areas, they had like all these different. I don't know if they were really technically dialects, but like accents in different ways.
Yeah.
So so I'm going to school in Vasa, learning the official Finnish Swedish. When I'm going, when I go back home to my wife and her family, we spend a lot of time around them. They're speaking differently than what I'm learning, and all of the media in class is coming from Sweden. So that's also sounding different. So I continue to speak English because I don't. I can read Finnish.
I can't blame you, man. I can't blame you.
Yeah, especially since now, especially the past 16 years, I'm doing Lamentations of the Flame Princess professionally, so I'm immersed in English language every day. And this is my office slash living room. On most days, I will go out once a day to go to the grocery store to get that day's food, just so I have an excuse to leave the house during the week. I'm not immersed. I'm not around anybody. So
Okay.
hi, I'm normal.
I
Yes.
mean, I can't. I don't blame you. It's kind of like it.
What
It
am I?
does sound like it does sound kind of like the experience I hear most self-published or like writers or people who run publishing houses.
Yeah.
So it tracks what you told me
Okay.
tracks.
Okay.
Um, okay, so I know we got distracted, but this was a great story. I appreciate it. But I wanted to also share your bio on writing, for RPGs, also your writing work in general. I mostly just know you from the tabletop RPGs, but I assume it's not the only thing you've ever written in your life, right?
Now there was the heavy metal zine that I did for that number of years, late '90s into the 2000s.
Right. But I'm talking about like Lamentations. Like, could you give people like an overview of how it started, how you decided to go about it, how you decided to make like this crazy grindhouse clone of like BX?
Yeah.
How did this happen?
Okay, I've been into role playing games since I was a little kid. I think it was my birthday, 1984, which would have put me 10 years old. It might have been 83, 40 odd years ago. I don't remember exactly. 8, 9, 10 years old, somewhere around there. It was the Menser Red Box that introduced me, but I didn't get the rules first. For some reason, the school, the elementary school I went to, would have a book fair every year, and for some reason they had D&D adventure modules for sale, but I don't remember if they had the rules. If they did, I didn't know that you needed rules. And I was already into, fantasy movies and reading Lord of the Rings, Savage Sword of Conan comics. So it's like, oh, this Dungeons and Dragons. And my mother at this point is a single mother of two young kids, and she, for some reason, wanted to paint the little figures, but she didn't want to just start this hobby buying all this stuff when she had two kids to take care of. So she knows I'm into this stuff. So she's like, hey, how about check out that Dungeons and Dragons stuff? Because she got me those like endless quest, choose your own adventure D&D books that were
Yes.
around in those days. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'm really interested. And so like I got the adventure modules before I got the rules, and I didn't know what to do with them. So me and my friends would try to figure it out. We'd put down the maps and have like little playing pieces and roll dice in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because we didn't know what to do with them. We were just figuring, because the squares were so small, they were like totally unsuitable for like putting pawns on them. So we were like, what? And then you get the rules, and it's like, oh yeah. Meanwhile,
Oh,
I'm like, oh
it's
yeah,
a
I want to be.
hex.
Yeah, and then I want to. And then, of course, we go to the hobby store that sells this kind of stuff. And for some reason, I was being nostalgic, looking on Google Earth, looking at like the place I used to live in Connecticut, and there's the route I took to my elementary school, and there's the store where all the D&D stuff was like under a glass case, so you had to go and ask the person to look at all the stuff, and then I'm allowed to get one module, and so they got a stack of like 50 things. I'm just studying each and every one, and they're all in shrink wrap. So I'm just like, Well, my mother's just like, oh my God, pick one. And the store clerk's like, oh, for
But
fuck's
which
sake.
one?
Yeah, yeah.
There's the one
But
with the laser guns and the one that has all the bullshit traps and the one with a
yeah. And meanwhile, I'm also like, oh yeah, those figures look nice. And my mother's like, yes, they do look very nice.
and your
So
mom just wanted to get her hands on the figures.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I'm already a nerdy kid, and this does not help. This is
Hold on.
so
Wait, give me 1 second.
okay.
It's my kid. He wants to make a comic book. He wanted me to like whatever.
So yeah, I also did amateur comic books, around this
Oh,
time period. I
okay. So you started with the modules and you also did comic books by yourself because you're a kid and obviously it's what
yeah, I,
kids do.
I
So
wasn't
you
serious about comic. Well, I was like serious, but didn't know what being serious about comics meant. So it would just be at the corner store. I would just get whatever comics they had there every month. So I had some Justice League and Batman stuff. They didn't really have any Marvel stuff, as I recall. I got it except for Savage Sword, but that was like a magazine, and not everything was weird. So anyway,
Yeah. It's a scattershot thing that happened in the 80s where if you wanted a thing, you just got the thing that you got. And
yeah,
for us, it happened until the early aughts. So for us, it was like you'd go to a store, you'd buy like a VHS and have like 5 anime episodes, and whether you liked them or not, they didn't give a shit. You just had to like them. So
yeah,
it was
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like that for us.
Yeah, so I was so interested in this comic book stuff that I started inventing my own like comics characters and everything. And I want to make my own comic books. So what I do is I sit down and draw some like pre-planned generic, here are the panels on a sheet. And when my mother went to work, I had her just like photocopy, copies. So I had all of these pre-formatted empty panels to just draw stories in, and I don't have any of that stuff anymore, but
That's such a shame.
I'm sure it was absolute garbage.
Nah, it's look. You, how old were you?
This was the same time period, so 9, 10 years old.
Nine. You leave little Jim alone. He did fine. I'm sure he did fine.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure. Yeah,
okay, so you found these
quality
things.
work.
Yeah, it's you did what you had with what you could. You did the best you had with what you could, man. It's what you all do. So okay, so you discovered role playing games modules first, which I guess explains a lot about, as I understand your philosophy and how your adventures work. Because it's very interesting. Because a lot of the people who do OSR games, they hyper focus on giving like players tons of options. They do all the groundwork, and then they kind of go like, figure the rest out. Well, where Lamentations kind of like does the opposite, where you created a basic book and then you went hard on the adventures
Well,
on
even when I started the company, the adventures came first because originally I didn't think I needed to make my own rules because Osric was already out, and Labyrinth Lord, and Swords and Wizardry, and Basic Fantasy, the first OSR games.
yeah
And
one a short explanation for anyone that doesn't follow, because a lot of the people that listen to us are not into the hardcore nerd shit.
right,
uh
okay. Okay. Well, I don't know how short this explanation is going to
no,
be, but
it's
I'll try to keep it short. But Dungeons and Dragons has over time, had different editions, which changes the rules. So there's
yeah.
been a progression of change over the 50 plus years of Dungeons and Dragons. Um, the in my opinion, and not only my opinion, because there was a movement based on this. The third edition that came out in the year 2000 seemed to be a different game completely to me.
Entirely.
That's when I stopped liking official Dungeons and Dragons. But there was also a license that was part of the game at that point because they wanted to publish less adventures themselves as the official company, and they figure, oh, the small companies and the fans can do that themselves. But somebody figured out how to backwards engineer the entire old version of Dungeons and Dragons from this license. And so there was a group of people that I was around the message boards and watching this happen, but I wasn't involved in doing any of this original groundwork. There were the people that would recreate the various earlier editions of Dungeons and Dragons, and then it becomes a commercial enterprise for some people, and then people start making their own adventures. And I started on this after that initial wave. I'm part of the second wave of
So
OSR
you
publishers.
started adventures first, right? So you were like,
Yeah.
okay, these weapons, these things are coming out. People want adventures for this. That's when you started putting out your first adventures, and and when did you decide to start? Actually, no, I want to ask you about this. So, what goes into making an adventure? Like, how do you make an adventure? All the stuff you put out from like, I don't have. I really want to get your books in print. The only one I could actually get that my kids wouldn't look at the cover and start asking weird questions was Book of Antithesis. Um,
Maybe the worst one for them to open up and start looking
Oh,
through questions.
absolutely. My wife would kill me if she saw what was inside just the first 20 pages, which get me so much trouble. Anyway, so but the thing is, um, how do you make your adventure? Because all your adventures, they're very concept forward. They all have an interesting twist. There's hardly, like, with the exception of maybe just another stupid dungeon, which is like in the name, I guess. None of them is just a straightforward dungeon. So my question is, when you start making an adventure, and when you started making an adventure for the OSR, how did you go about it? Did you go concept first? Did you go mechanics first? Did you go map first? Like how do you approach this?
It's always concepts first. It's like it's the same thing. Well, the thing about doing this once you start doing this professionally, it's like everything that you actually play, everything you do for actual play, you're thinking, oh, I hope I can publish this. So it's so the distinction between just playing the game and being a professional creating, stuff for publication, that line really blurs badly. But it's always what is the core experience that I want someone what is the core experience I want someone to have? And then you start building an adventure around it to get to that core experience. And then just to make sure you're not hammering someone over the head with what you want their core experience to be, you throw in twists and turns, you put in little bits that might sabotage your core point that you want, just so it's a game that's being played and there's no foregone conclusion to it.
Right. Okay. So because the reason why I'm asking, since you did mention this, is like because you have a lot of adventures, have really uh, unconventional complications. Like they have things that affect the players down the line in the campaign. One of your adventures, what was it? The God That Crawls, where one of the players could roll, and if they got a specific result, they could email you directly, and you could get back to their GM with an effect that
Yeah.
one of the players would get, for example, etc. They have
That was a good idea when there weren't very many people interested in the OSR, but it's the kind of thing that the company was in a state of constant growth at that point, and it's like that turned into such a mistake because I am, I yeah, I don't
you,
do anything like that anymore. That was years and years, years ago.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is that when you have like some weird high concept thing, it's usually very hard to play test. RPGs, TTRPGs by themselves are a son of a bitch to play test because it's not like a video game where there's like a set number of things a player can do and you can control it. So my question is like, how do you go about play testing like an adventure? Because it's such an involved process.
Not really. You just play it, and if but my by play testing, I have a feeling it's much looser than other professional outfits. The feeling I get, especially from like Dungeons and Dragons these days, is that those things are play tested so that hopefully, and this is just pure conjecture, that they're play tested so hopefully everybody that plays that adventure is having roughly the same experience. And so that's how those adventures are designed.
It seems that
Whereas
way.
whereas I'm just, my play tests are like, can this work? Okay, that's it. It's all it needs because especially the genre that I play around with, like the weird fantasy and the horror, it's got different expectations and different acceptable outcomes. I mean, for example, the God that crawls. You brought that up. The idea was is that God was going to be indestructible for the characters that
Yes.
in that maze, and that if you just and it was going to be basically a chase through a maze where you had to make you could move faster than the god, but if you wanted to raid little tombs and the little caches to try to get the treasure out of them, that would make noise, that would take time, and oh, here's the thing coming, so you got to, and how are you going to find the exit? But on the final play test before it went into like real production, the players figured out a way to kill it. So then the rest of the adventure actually became very, very boring because they were just able to leisurely wander around and loot the whole damn place with no tension and no threat. And I looked at that and thought, fair enough. Good job. I'm
I
not
mean,
changing anything. It's
look, it's a thing that a lot of people don't understand when they play tabletop RPGs. It's the sense that you can't account for every factor, every change, every everything, because it's a game that by its nature allows you to do everything you want, right? It's within the confines of the rules, but you can still do whatever you want. I
yeah,
don't think you can count for all the permutations, and it's so weird to me every time I talk to people, especially people that play a lot of 5e, and they tell me, "Oh, we played through Curse of Strahd and we got this ending," kind of like they talk about it like it's like they played through Castlevania, and it's so crazy to me that people played the same thing and they had the same campaign and they all did the same thing. It's so strange, it's so weird. I don't know.
Well, the first thing I released professionally was Death Frost Doom, and there were several reports of it's a dungeon underneath a cabin up in the mountains.
Yes,
And I heard there were multiple play reports of players that go up the mountain, go in the cabin, find the entrance to the dungeon, and just the atmosphere of everything up to that point. They went, "Nah, we're not doing this." And the people that bought the adventure to play, they're like mad. There's like, you made an adventure that people don't want to adventure in, and I'm thinking, oh my god, I wrote something that was like that the atmosphere was done so successfully that the people didn't want to take their pretend people into the pretend place to do the thing
that
that
is mad
better
props to
be.
you. Great job, great job. I haven't even had that happen in a Call of Cthulhu game, which is weird. It's really strange how the OSR and like old Dungeons and Dragons lends itself better to horror than horror games. Like people will put out horror games and will put in like sanity mechanics and everything and to try to make it scary. And at the end of the day, all you need is like a hit points track and like diminishing resources. It's kind of strange how everyone keeps trying to reinvent the wheel when they got
Yeah,
it
well,
right in the
all,
70s.
all you need, well, this is weird because you were just saying that your audience is not necessarily really into the heavy nerd stuff, but then it's
I
like,
know.
how do we go into the game design discussion here?
I know. I can't help it.
Yeah, okay, well,
It's
that's
oh okay. Right. Let's backtrack then into the game design. I wanted to ask you things about how you do the weirdness, but I wanted to do like the
I mean,
nitty gritty
I can
stuff.
talk about it all day and night long. I just
No,
it's
absolutely.
useful for you if your audience is just like,
Abs- yeah, more. I'm like I said, I'm more looking to have people listen to actual designers talk and how what goes into their process. You know how you like, for example, your process appears to focus, not so much on character options, like we said, more on adventures and the players, developing, not all the Chotskis that everyone's like used to, which
well,
I wanted
my
to get your perspective on that.
yeah, well, I have an observation about official Dungeons and Dragons and how that's evolved. Like the early days of Dungeons and Dragons, like the original and the basic and first edition D&D was all about the adventure. Like what's going on in the adventure, that was always the most important thing. And then second edition, it was always about the setting more than anything else. Third and fourth edition became about the characters and all of the different options and powers the characters could have. And then the sense I get for fifth edition, well, when fifth edition was first released, they were marketing it kind of as a throwback to more traditional Dungeons and Dragons. But as the fifth edition life cycle has gone on for the product, it seems to be more about the player expressing themselves more than it is about the character in the fiction or the setting or the adventure. That's yeah.
So your philosophy, it's more toward the old school, like give players something to do and they'll
Yeah.
figure out how to do it themselves.
Yeah, I don't know who the players are going to be. I don't know what their characters are going to be. I don't know if they're playing their character as in getting into character and talking in first person or whether they're talking third person about their characters. The difference between, I open the treasure chest or oh, my character opens the treasure chest or if they're just treating their character as like a pawn on a board. There's so many different approaches to playing these role playing games, and I never know what's the approach that's going to be taken by any particular group playing the game. And I publish a number of different authors, and none of us are looking at any of this exactly the same way. So yeah, it's
No,
depends. It depends on the adventure and that central experience that I'm wanting the players to have. So different things may approach this differently depending on what that core experience is.
It's good that you also mentioned it because I also had another question. I know setting is not your first priority. You just mentioned this, and it's apparent across the whole host of like settings you've done for adventures. Like you have everything from like a cabin in the woods, a weird magic autopsy on like this cursed corpse, Neanderthals and Portuguese explorers on Mars. You run the whole gamut. I love that one. That has such a great premise. Um, Even though I would like to see it expanded more. I'm just saying. But anyway, um, so you have a weird setting. You have a very weird setting, and I know you'll say, "Oh, of course, I have weird fantasy." I know, but your setting is weird in the sense that it's supposed to be our world in around about the 15th, 16th centuries, but there's also elves, there's also dwarves, there's also halflings.
Well,
How important was
it
it to you, or do
depends
you?
because, like, the rule book is the way it is because when I was coming up in the OSR, not like these kids today, the point of the OSR was that everything was going to be compatible with each other. That all of these dozens or hundreds of people that are making their own content based on old Dungeons and Dragons, you can just swap everything out interchangeably. It'll have different flavors, but it will all be the rules will all be compatible with each other. So um, I've lost your question.
it's it's about world building. Like how does it work? Like in your understanding,
Right.
what's the world for Lamentations like?
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so
And does it
so
even play into your like your design philosophy?
right. Well, the now I put things in the real world, which I think is actually not a weird setting. Oh yeah, okay. Now I know why I was going on about the intercompatibility thing. For me, the fact that there are elves and dwarves and halflings in the rules, that's just for the intercompatibility. Because someone's not necessarily just going to be using Lamentations adventures with the Lamentations rules, the same way that a Lamentations adventure might be used with other rules. Because the authors all have their different opinions on what they try to sneak in, but and the stuff that I set in the real world, the elves and dwarves and halflings never show up in the adventures.
Yeah, I did notice. I did want to ask.
Yeah,
Some of them do mention them, like
yeah,
Euphanoums. Like Euphanoums, it does say like if you're playing a demi-human, like his spells work
yeah,
against them or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. But but they're not actually present. You don't meet any in the adventures, but that's not an that is not a 100% strict rule, especially in my earlier especially my earlier work. It'll have these things in there, like there were the cannibal elves in Weird New World. There was the old dwarven temple in Hammers of the God, and the tombs of the, once again, cannibal halflings that were in Better Than Any Man. Now, Better Than Any Man, the halfling tombs match up to the timeline in the library in Hammers of the God, which basically brings all of that demi-human fantasies, orcs and goblins as being connected in the prehistory of the real world. But it's more like an Easter egg than anything. But as far as using the real world as a setting, that seems to be weird only for people that are role players first, because most horror movies and horror fiction take place in the real world. I mean, if you watch Nightmare on Elm Street, you don't think, oh, this is taking place in a fantasy version of Earth. No, it's just Earth where something weird's happening. It's understood that this is happening in what's supposed to be the real world, and that's what the real world setting for the game is supposed to be like. You understand this is like the real world. There's just all this weird stuff happening in the shadows, just like any other horror fiction. Like Lovecraft doesn't say, "Yes, I've created a fictional version on Earth, on which to set my stories." No, no, he invents an entire new network of cities in the Northeast, and we're still supposed to recognize this as our world that this is happening in. And it's the same thing with the adventures.
Right. The reason why I'm asking you this is like a lot of people get hung up on this. Everyone's going crazy these days about world building. You know, everyone, their dad are running a YouTube channel discussing this all the way into the ground. Sometimes it gets into the way of like making the game. A lot of people consider, you know, when I make a game, I need to have a world that I can sell along with this. It becomes like a whole complicated situation. And I'm trying to get perspectives from different designers on how they
Right.
approach this.
Well, I think the OSR assumes more than maybe other game types or subgenres in role playing, that people are going to be using the materials in their own campaign. They're not going to be primarily using the published material for their game session to session of their game. So
Right.
all of this world building that you do for your official product is going to be it's going to be wasted on someone that's using their own world that they've invented. And so everything that you so if you're using your own invented world as the base for as the location for your adventures, people are going to have to translate that into the world they're using for themselves. And I and that's another thing. If you're using the real world, people don't have to figure out how to translate. Well, what's the kingdom of Zirconia? I can just say, oh, it's Spain. I was like, I know what Spain is. I know how to translate that into, so that's a useful thing there. But yeah, that's the thing. People, that's the thing, I guess, with Lamentations being more concerned about the adventures. I mean, even the settings we've done are just more like really large adventures. Like we just put out the Nebulith, which is a East Asian setting book, but is like, are you going to do an entire campaign there? I mean, you could, but then it could also be a place your characters visit, and you're there for a little while and leave.
Same with
Same,
Kelong, same with Carcosa.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's not like this is the world that all of the adventures in our game line take place in. It's just, oh, here's a place that could be more than just 2 or 3 sessions worth. It's just that bigger of an adventure.
It's also interesting prior before this, since you mentioned the discussion over the world building, you mentioned horror movies, and
Hmm.
in your channel you made it very clear. The horror movies, especially the slasher films, the weird ones, were a huge inspiration for you, which I guess feeds into how you present magic in your setting in your books, because all the magic books you've made, all the books that include all the weird creatures and everything, up to and including the esoteric creature generator, they all always present magic as being super weird, dangerous
Yeah,
to mess with. It's even the same with Eric Kazan. I haven't read the entirety of the book
yeah, yeah.
with
Well,
this.
that's sort of one of the problems I always had as a kid with the adventures. Like the first adventures I got were Keep on the Borderlands and the Village of Hamlet. And these are beginner adventures that are supposed to teach the game to you, especially Keep on the Borderlands. And here's this fort out in the wilderness where it seems that in any group of just normal guardsmen, someone's got a magic weapon, and someone's got it. So if you play Dungeons and Dragons as presented in the adventures, you gain a couple levels, and you're like not concerned with the normal world anymore. You're only concerned with the more and more epic adventures where you're basically not a human being anymore. You're not interacting with the real world in any real way, because and that's, if you're wanting to do that, that's like fine. But to me, if you divorce people out from the real world, then it's like the setting almost doesn't matter anymore. That there is no grounding for any of this, because it's your character might as well be a space alien.
I get
And,
it.
and suddenly you can walk into town and do anything, because if you're making city guards that make sense for the setting, then they're not going to be able to touch you. You can do anything. You rule the place if you want. But then if you make city guards that scale with the game and how the game is played and what it's presented, then suddenly, oh well, there's trouble. So here's our elite guardsmen who, are high level adventurer levels themselves, and suddenly the world is just all nonsense. It's like there's no place where there's like any grounding. It's just all, which people want to do world building, but then they're building a world that either doesn't make sense for the game as it scales, or it's a world that is so alien to our own that it's nothing relatable at all just from the beginning. And now there are settings that have done that. Like, what is it? Eberron is the one that takes all of the assumptions of Dungeons and Dragons and like how it would work if there was like this magic actually existed. It was common. So there's this magical technology.
Oh, where there's they industrialize the whole thing and they have
Yeah,
like
yeah. Where
high
they take
speed
it up,
Thunderbolt rails. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they take it to its logical conclusion. But that is so different than what people think of. Because you think of Dungeons and Dragons, I mean, you can either think of a Conan the Barbarian kind of, high octane quest, or, a Tolkien epic kind of quest. But both of those, if you're thinking of those, you're thinking of like a realish world. The Lord of the Rings starts in the Shire. And in the narrative of the book, even after everything else, the hobbits come back home, it's the scouring of the Shire. It's still a challenge for them dealing with all the other now renegade hobbits. It's like, you know what I mean. There's still a real world that's to be dealt with even after the epic quest. Narratively, how do you do that in the game is a hell of a thing, because characters are the entire the
Yeah, but
entire
that's
culture around games is that you advance in power, that you don't fight the big bad master evil thing immediately. There's this growing that you have to do, but then once you can do that, then this entire substrate of more grounded adventure is now pointless. It is something that in the books, these challenges can stay challenges because the writer is controlling the narrative. But when you're having a game where you have rules that the players have to follow and everyone has to follow for the game to work,
yeah.
and
But the thing is, the game you're selling a power fantasy, right? It's the
well, are you?
players.
I don't know that I am.
No, I mean
Because
to each their own. People come look.
horror really isn't a power
Yeah,
fantasy, and
yeah,
I'm
but
injecting a lot of horror into the fantasy, and because that's like one of the big complaints, that it's like this seems like a bummer. Well, it's like, yeah, if you're playing it because you think you want to slay the dragon and sit upon a pile of gold, I guess, yeah, Lamentations will seem like a bummer, because we're doing something a little bit different than that. We're just using the same rules engine, which I think messes with people's minds, expecting if you're using the rule engine, it's going to be the same kind of, flavor and tone of game.
hey, man, you're preaching to the choir. I'm just saying what I'm saying is that uh, in a game you're selling a power fantasy. So the players come in to do this. Even if you are doing a horror game, I am playing and I read your adventures, and whenever I get to run them, I run them because I'm like, oh, this is a cool and weird and fucked up thing that's happening in a church, like somewhere in Germany. I would like to put my players through the ringer to do this. Like my players used to tell me when I used to run Call of Cthulhu for them. Yeah, we'll run a one shot. Constantine's going to kill all of us, but it's going to be fun because but it's part of like what you're selling, right? You're selling horror. That's the idea. That's what you're doing. You're selling a slasher movie. All the teens have to die. The ones that smoke pot and have sex anyway.
Well,
Uh,
it's well, I guess a few are like that, but there's more kinds of horror out there than the slasher. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was just saying like one of the examples. So I was wondering because with all this, we didn't answer the question I'd asked you, which was so I see you have knack for making magic like really super weird and
oh
super
yeah,
crazy.
well that's one thing to be able to
Every
steal.
every time I read it, I'm like, man, I shouldn't have fucked with magic. Because I remember the meme that said I shouldn't have hit that blunt. We,
Well, there has to be a reason why the game world doesn't look like the Eberron example with the lightning magic railways. It's you bake it into the concept of the game that like witch burnings and magic bad and only the weirdos and the outcasts. You turn magic into something that's done by basically a mad scientist type. So
right.
think so think Dr. Frankenstein would be a Lamentation style wizard. He's off in the castle doing his experiments, but there's no expectation that there's going to be an army of resurrected men just being part of the world.
No, I get it. Well, I mean, for myself, whenever I run a game, I try to keep magic out of the player's hands, or I try to ban. I'm gonna sound like a real fuddy duddy and spoil sport. I don't like players having access to magic, and
Right.
not just because I can't be bothered to read the rules, guilty as charged, but also because it's more interesting when magic is dangerous, when magic is weird, and Lamentations does this very well.
Yeah, because the summon spell in level one, that's one of the
Oh,
innovations we did. We we
yes.
we have a spell where you can summon otherworldly weird things at first level as a magic user. And if you screw up the spell, it is possible at first level that you basically blow up the world.
Yeah,
And
it's 4 pages
it,
of disadvantages of like things that can go wrong, if I'm not mistaken.
it's when I first introduced that, and in my home game, the magic user would be like, "Okay, I'm going to prepare summon for today," and whenever he wants to cast a spell, all the other players are like, "No, no, 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 no. We'll deal with this some other way. Don't do that unless we're all already dying." And it's like, I did it. It worked. It's exactly as planned. It's this power that nobody wants you to use. That's how magic should be viewed.
Yeah, it's the weird professor opening like the
Pat myself in the
Necronomicon.
back. I did a game design correctly.
Yeah, which so you did a Necronomicon like Evil Dead, where it's like, should you really record yourself reading through the pages? It's like, nothing will happen. What's the worst that can happen?
Because
Shut
there's
up.
always that player that wants to pull every lever, press every button, cast the spell. There's always one of those in every group somehow.
Yeah, those guys are the
That
best.
those guys are the best, especially because everyone else is being all sensible and is like, oh, this game is boring. Oh no, they're all gonna survive. I press the button. And it's like, yes.
Okay, so you said you did a game design with all this. We finally come around the big circle. I'm having fun. I don't know about you. So what goes into making a game essentially? Because like everybody tries to make a game. There are 3,000 tutorials on YouTube, and I will tell you this right now, listeners, most of them are nonsense. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Most of them are nonsense.
I
A
would
lot
say
of them are
most of them are taste specific more than nonsense. There is no universal advice.
there is a weird thing about TTRPGs, which has been happening since they started as a hobby. Like Tunnels and Trolls started because a guy played D&D once and then said, "I can do that," and then he made his own game. So
Yeah.
it's weird because if you go too hard in one direction, you create a super specific thing that caters to a super specific group of people you play with, and it's unplayable to everybody else, or it sucks for everybody else. So it's very weird to give direction, but I still think it's good to speak to professionals who make a living off it to
Yeah.
get their perspective.
Well,
So
just understand that anything I say is geared towards the kind of thing that I want to do. It's not necessarily universal advice. This is how you make the perfect game. Because there's
you
no
should
such
though.
thing.
Maybe if you do that, you can scam them and just do like the Raji masterclass. You just you grow a beard and you show up and just you
I just
fade in,
shaved
fade
my
out.
beard. My girlfriend wasn't too happy with me, but it was just getting too big. Sorry.
No, you have to. You have to grow the beard, step behind the dark background, and then fade in and fade out all the time and just say vague shit. I think you'll make a killing. But anyway, please go on.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Well, what was the question that was attached to this?
What goes into game design? Like what are the principles you
Okay.
follow into like making a game?
Well, I cheated because of this OSR thing was based on recreating an old version of a game based on the material that was provided in a license. I wasn't designing a game, I was modifying one. And it was just a matter of making the modifications to fit the flavor that I wanted the players to experience. For example, putting that summon spell as a, it's a completely new spell that I invented, and I make it available to beginning characters. That creates a certain atmosphere and flavor in the game. Just and like one thing I did, it's normally in Dungeons and Dragons, all of the treasure and all monetary value is measured in gold pieces. I just said, no, ours is going to be silver pieces. It makes no actual difference, except it's a little mental switch when you're dealing with silver instead of gold. It's like you're understanding it's a little grubbier, it's less epic. Just from suggestion of dealing with silver instead of gold. And that kind of stuff does matter. It,
Right.
it it's psychological tricks rather than any actual mechanical game bits. That stuff is just those things are equally important. You have to have all your atmospherics right and everything to get the tone that you want the game to have. And then well, the mechanics just have to not screw it up. There's no such thing as perfect mechanic. Any mechanic, any game that you play for any period of time, games cannot model reality, even a fictional reality. They can't do it perfectly. And the more you use any one system, you'll start seeing the the tears in the fabric, and the players will learn the tricks. And so you'll think, oh, we need to fix these problems. We need to fix these problems. But whatever you do to fix the problems, whether you come up with a new system or you do modifications, it's going to have the exact same issue because it can't model real reality or a fictional reality perfectly. And if it could, it would be unplayable because of all the different factors that you would have to deal with. If you want to do something that actually moves during play, it's going to have to be an approximation of what would happen according to the flavor of game you're wanting to present, and it's never going to be exact. So you just what is the flavor you want, what mechanics won't screw it up, and you're done.
It's very interesting because your point of view, the way you sound like exasperated like this, it's the same as Robin Laws has because I interviewed him the same. And I don't know if you've played his games.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he's he always like does all these mechanics, all this work, and it's weird how at the end of the day, if you do it long enough in this hobby, everything kind of converges. Is get a strong enough idea, get a good enough thing you want to convey to the players, and then make the rules that do a good enough job. If it works for evolution, it works
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it's going to work for your game. Yeah.
Survival of the good enough.
So exactly no, but it is like that. I saw it somewhere. It was like a joke where they show like the interior of like the human body have like a jumble of nerves that are all over. It's like shitty wiring work. It's like it's insane, and it's like one of the angels like the wires are crossed, Lord. He says, it's good enough. Ship it. Fuck it.
Yeah, it's good enough to have not died.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
what
Lord.
evolution is. What's good enough to not have died?
It's
People think of evolution as it's this conscious force that's making things more and more efficient for survival.
where
But
things are turning to perfection. Perfection
no,
is inevitable.
it's just well, what didn't kill you? What didn't kill you? And half of our stuff isn't positive complete tangent, but like evolutionary biologists and the people that when people are asked, well, why are our fingernails like that with like the whites on the end? And they'll invent some reason if they don't know, because everything has to have a point where my uneducated self thinks there's probably some important things that have allowed us to continue on through evolutionary time. And then there's a bunch of crap that just came along for the ride because it didn't kill us. That not
Yeah,
everything
but
was a reason. It just wasn't enough to drag us down. And so now we're stuck with it.
Yeah, but like if you're an evolutionary biologist, think about how crazy this is because you are living inside this soft machine and you have to reverse engineer other soft machines to find why things are like that. And hopefully so you can help make them better. So it's like it's kind of crazy. I think everyone that's doing this job or is a doctor is like slowly going insane and we're not
Yeah.
dealing with it because it's just
It's
we
like
just don't want to talk
the
about it.
real answer to everything. It didn't kill us.
It's the what was the Harlan Ellison line? It seemed like a good idea at the time. Okay, so we talked a little bit about game design. We talked a little bit about adventure design. So now we want to talk about the some people would call it the boring part. I think it's the most interesting part. So you're living in day job hard mode, right? You're running your own publishing house,
Yes.
a small publishing house. A little bit of experience as to where I'm coming from. I started writing professionally in 2010. By 2015, I realized that traditional publishing was dying, and everyone I used to work with was either dead, insane, or bankrupt. Like most of the publishing houses I used to know, I tried to revisit like a couple of days ago to see, and most of them are gone. And most everybody else I can't even find anymore, anywhere. So how how has it been for you, this entire, ups and
It's
downs?
been an absolute nightmare. I get to tell this story again. I was tricked by the Finnish government into starting a business.
Did they come to your house and they were like, you have to do something. You can't just stay here.
No, they so I was doing the integration school, and then when I moved to Helsinki and did a year of integration school here, and it's like, okay, when that was ending, it's like, oh crap, I got to get a job now, and I found out that there was this program or a scheme. I love that the British call government program schemes, which to American ears sounds sinister. Uh,
Yes.
but
So it was this or Hesburger for you. Like it was
yeah,
just it was like
yeah, that or
yeah.
Hesburger. It's this program where they'll pay your rent for, it was like 500 euros a month. They'll pay you for 6 months to help you start a business, to help with your expenses while you're starting a business. And I was like, oh, if I tell them I'm starting a role playing publishing business, I won't have to get a job for another 6 months.
Those
And
rubes.
this is 2009. Everyone knows you can't make any money making role playing games. So I'm thinking I'm scamming the government. So I come up with a business plan of what I'm going to do, and I got to present it to this office who's got to make a decision on whether or not they're going to approve this funding. And yeah, and then they said yes. And the 6 months ended up being 9 months because I got an extension on it. But a funny thing happened on the way to the government scam. I mean, I was scamming them in a way that I didn't think this could be a viable business. I actually made books during that time. I did the thing I said I was going to do. I just didn't think it was going to do anything. That's the part where I'm, call it a scam, but
Dude,
people liked it.
look,
People liked it.
it's creative work. All
Yeah,
creative work feels like a scam, right? And yes,
yeah,
people did like it. But all creative work feels like a scam because, where your alternative is like carrying cement bags or
yeah,
like, unclogging toilets. Oh, I
yeah,
get to write? I just write?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
that?
And people started buying it. People liked it. It was getting reviewed well. It was just like, oh my goodness, okay. And then then I, just started publishing more stuff. Then the 9 months ended, and it was just like, I can keep doing this. I can keep going. Oh my goodness. And then it keeps building and building, and then suddenly, because those first books were printed at the digital print shop, a mile down the road. And then suddenly it's like, oh, well, if we did this thing and we can do this, and then suddenly we're printing hardcover books, thousands of copies of them, and they're selling. And it's just like, oh my God, I'm running a real business now. And it's been a complete disaster because organization and dealing with real world stuff like taxes, which I'm behind on at the moment.
Maybe we should keep this part out. The
They
interview.
know. Trust me, the
Oh,
tax
okay,
office
okay,
already
okay.
knows.
Okay,
Trust
okay,
me.
okay. Okay, okay. Just the
There,
guy from the
there,
tax service watching this on YouTube. Yes, we do know.
it,
Yes,
yes, we are familiar with his
we are
case.
aware of Mr. Raji. Yes, we are aware of Mr. Raji. Yes.
Trust me, they were more aware of it than I was. Which is the problem. Uh, so it's like there's all this it's like I do this because I'm not interested in doing anything in the real world. I mean, I'm a little bit bright, so there's so many things. If I gave a crap, I could do something real, but I've got no interest in the real world, so I do this instead. But there's so much real world stuff that needs to be done then on top of that, and I'm horrible with all of that. So, for a while it was just everything was just constant, incredible, I don't believe it growth. So it didn't matter how disorganized I was. Everything just turned
It
out
just
fine.
worked. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, the past bunch of years, I should really, it's stuff that I really have to be on top of, all the real world stuff. And it's just always constantly a struggle because I'm resentful. I mean, it's one thing if you go to a job, if you have a job with a salary and, you get your paycheck, every 2 weeks or once a month, and the taxes are already taken out, and you get to grumble at it, but it's done. Whereas this, no, I'm the one that has to, put into the computer the actual transfer and watch, and take the money out myself. And and yeah, it'll get worked out, but it's always just kind of I'm behind. Okay, I gotta get ahead enough that they're not sending me the nasty letters, and then it's like, okay, I get to breathe. Oh crap, gotta get it, and then that's my life. That's my life
I mean,
as running a small publishing company. It's just, oh, I hope next week's sales cover last week's bills. Holy crap, that's life.
yeah, I get it, but you also hear you describing this, and I'm reminded of. Have you read Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol?
Oh yes, oh yes.
Yes. Do you remember that line where Cliff is fetching about something, and like the professor turns to him and says, "Cliff, you should stop complaining so much. People are going to start believing that you actually don't like what you're doing."
Well, the actual writing and the creating and being able to say, "Hey, look, I did a thing." That part,
Nice.
that part I very much like doing. It's all the admin, it's
Yes.
uh, but it's life, and there's nothing you can do in this life that isn't going to have large parts of it that you really, really need to complain about. And so, yeah. But as far as that goes, at least I know that all of my failures and all of my successes, it's based on decisions that I'm making. I'm not going to be out on my ass next week because some CEO had a stupid idea that crashed a company and now I don't have a job. I'm that stupid CEO now. It's all in my hands. So
Nice. Nice. So, speaking of like making choices and being the CEO and everything, you have an excellent reputation both for being open to new ideas for people that approach you and they pitch to you, right? And also for treating your writers well, which is rare given that, like I said, I came from traditional publishing and it's become extra super predatory, even worse than it used to be, especially for TTRPGs. So, do you feel that things are getting better in the field? Do you feel that
well, personally, like my retail distribution's been a mess this past couple of years, so that's made things suck. And so as far as conditions, it just depends. It depends on access. When I get in front of people, like every time I do a convention, I do well. There are no conventions that I go to and think, oh, this is awful. No, I always do well. When I get in front of people, when stuff is being reviewed, some of my stuff depends on the reviewer, but you get our how do I call that? Here's the thing: as a publisher, I'm thinking it's a bad idea to act like some of the books are more important than others, because I don't want, because there's going to be someone's work that's like, how come you're calling that guy's stuff more important than mine? But the fact is, there are like the prestige pieces that are more so than others. And when we get the prestige pieces in front of someone, it's people recognize the craft, even if they don't like what it's doing. It's like they recognize the craft. It's like what we're doing is like undeniable as far as quality goes. Whether it's to your taste is something different. But so it's like once we get in front of people, like last convention last month in Germany, for some reason I was in this room where like a lot of people didn't know who I was, which after 16 years, it's just kind of like I gotta explain everything from scratch to these people. I mean only slightly less annoying than taxes. But so then but then people buy stuff. They're interested. It's like, oh, that looks neat. Oh, that looks good. Look at all the different wild covers that are on this table. What is this? I'm interested. So if we get in front of people, people are interested. It's just in the barrage of the internet standing up and saying, hey, look at this cool thing. That just gets more and more difficult because, I mean, I've taken myself off of social media, in the past few
I
months
don't blame you.
because social media is just a complete garbage dump. And how that turns out, I mean, that may have been the CEO bonehead move that crashes the company. I don't know. But the fact is that social media is not for actual humans. It hasn't been for quite some time. There's no way to be on social media, and it's like if you're on social media and you don't think you're surrounded by bad actors, that's you. That's you're the son of a bitch that's ruining life for everyone else. If you're thinking, oh yeah, this is fine.
One in three people
Social
is a
media is that meme. Oh, this is fine while everything's burning around you. So it's like,
it's
okay, I don't need to look at that anymore. I can't deal with it. And I can't, I mean, and there's something with my brain because these things are designed to be addictive. So there's something in my brain. I just can't log in and do my post and log out. I'll end up seeing what's the algorithm wants. And then you also have to, you have to alter the way you express what you want to express so the algorithm, it's like I'm not talking to the algorithm. I have no interest in talking to the algorithm. Just fuck all these sites. I'm not doing it because everything, because I remember like this was a few years ago, like I did a post about some horror movies, and the post had a few pictures of from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 when Leatherface is like poking the your fans are gonna love this. Poking his chainsaw, not running, just poking, into the clothed crotch of a woman. Then
yes.
there's the scene from Reanimator where a headless corpse is putting its corpse in between the legs of the naked lady. And then Return of the Living Dead when Linnea Quigley is dancing on the tombstones butt ass naked. And of course, oh God, Facebook decided that two of the three of those were inappropriate content and gave me some sort of formal warning, but left one of them up. I forget, it wasn't the Linnea Quigley one, and I think the Reanimator one had a nipple. So I think it was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one, where it's a fully clothed woman, but it's a man threatening to ram a chainsaw right in her crotch. That's fine. And it's like, I have no interest in trying to navigate this nonsense. This is
It's
just,
it's the unfortunate reality of the situation. Like I remember when I was
but it's
I
not
found
reality. It's not reality. It's decisions that people make that suddenly people act like is reality. It's like you have to deal. And they're like, no, you
the
don't.
worst,
No, you don't.
the worst part about this is like I have friends, co-workers who work as independently as artists, and they all eventually realize that also social media is impossible for them to get an audience consistently. Like a lot of them will hit it big sometimes on Twitter, they'll get a lot of views, they get a lot of engagement, but this won't translate to like sales or anything substantial. So what I'm saying is maybe you're right. Maybe you do have a point about dumping social media. Maybe on the business side it doesn't work so well. I'm just saying. Uh,
We're going to find out. Because even these platforms that I supposedly have thousands of followers, and I make a post, and this small fraction of the followers see it, and it's like, okay, it's like Facebook. It's like you expressly have to pay to reach your own audience with your post. It's like, no, 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 no. I'm not playing this game. Why does this have a stranglehold over everything? Not playing that game anymore.
You do. It does seem like word of mouth is better in the long run,
Yeah,
especially in this hobby. Especially now that there's more noise as it goes on. There's more noise. Everyone just keeps putting stuff out. Everything keeps going out in crowdfunding. It seems to constantly happen all the time with this thing. So I don't know if there's any way you can actually cut through this outside of word of mouth, like people saying, "Oh, I
yeah.
play Jim's Adventures. Jim makes good shit." You know, go
Well,
buy Jim's stuff.
that's why it's important to do these conventions and get out in front of people. And they pass by. It's like it's right here. Look through it. Where maybe not that one. I might careful about that one. These are fine. Look through these ones. And then if that warning makes your eyes light up, then yeah, look at it. Well,
Exactly.
like
So
we make some rough stuff that's not for general audiences, but there are some people when you say that they're like, oh really? And it's just like, gotcha.
yeah, and also, you don't have to sell millions of copies. Like I was talking with Evan Dam, another webcomic artist who's like self-published, and he said, I don't have to sell like millions of copies. I'm just one guy. Like I'm fine, even if it doesn't, even if I don't hit it big. And I think it's a good thing to keep in mind because a lot of people approach this and they're like, oh, I know a guy who did this and he made 100K in a month, and I'm like, okay, sure, that guy won the lottery. What are you doing? It's like, just do your thing.
Rent
So,
month. That's the that's the
what
important.
was it? Yeah,
Rent
rent. Rent's great. Rent's great. Bills paid. Not starving. Awesome. So, with all your experience and everything, and since we talked about all the realities of this, what advice would you give to people to decide to either go into writing professionally for this hobby or like starting their own publishing house, God forbid? Like, what would you tell them?
I don't. Oh boy. Now, when you say professionally, do you just mean getting money for it, or they're going to quit their job and do it?
I mean, ideally, they're going to start get paid for it, and they won't dump their job, to become role playing game. Please don't do this. I write for a living, and I would not recommend it. My kids tell me they want to do it, and I tell them don't you dare. So,
I
but please
started
don't.
off with no job, so it was easy to try this out. Especially if you're in a place like the U.S. where you need those benefits to have like health insurance or anything. No, 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 no. But as far as doing it as a side thing, oh, yes, yes, do it as a side thing. Decide. It's the question of who whether you want to do it yourself or try to find a publisher. It just depends on how much admin you want to do because writing the thing and then figuring out like learning desktop publishing, Adobe or whatever, the graphic design software, or outsourcing that. What about the artwork? And then you got to do this. And then are you going to do print on demand or digital only? Or do you want to actually get quality bound books? And if you do that, well, then you're going to have to take orders. You're going to have a space to store all this stuff, and then you got to become very familiar with the different ways of shipping. Are you going to get contracts with shipping companies? At what point do you try to do that? Because if you don't do that, all the shipping is going to be really expensive for this brand new publishing thing. But what's the point of trying to get a contract when you've got nothing to ship yet? And there's plus there's so much admin to go along with all of this that it's like in heavy metal. It's like it is so easy just to do everything yourself now. You don't need a record label, and in fact most record labels can't do anything more for you than you can do yourself. but then you'd have to do it yourself. So that's why all these small little boutique record labels still exist, because the bands just want to do the music. They don't want to do all the admin. They don't want these big piles of garbage in their garage. And so it's these are all decisions you got to figure out. How do you want to handle it? But sure, if you want to do something as a side gig and you've got an idea and you think some people will be interested, absolutely do it. There's no disadvantage to doing it. Just if you think you're going to be able to quit your job and then it'll provide all the same stability that an actual salaried normal job will give you. No, 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 no.
No, no.
Even if you do well, it's unstable chaos.
Absolutely. No, I get it. And it's good. It's good for people to actually talk about it, right? Because a lot of people get kind of like caught in the kind of like the glitz and glamour, and I'm going to be a creative,
Yeah.
and nobody cares about the nitty-gritty of the situation. So
There
it's good
is
to, yeah.
there is no glitz and glamour of being a creative, because that first time you go out somewhere and somebody recognizes you, maybe at a convention, hopefully at a convention. I've gotten recognized on the street before in cities I don't live in, and it's like nice, but so weird. It is just it's not the the glitz and glamour doesn't exist. It's
Did
just
people ever like stop you on the street and ask you like, why did you do something in adventure? Like, or why that rule is that way? They ever
no,
stop
but
you for like errata? Okay, thank God.
last year Gothenburg, I was there for GothCon, and I'm wandering the streets of Gothenburg lost because there's a concert the night after the convention hours, and I've got no idea where this club is. I don't live in Gothenburg, but I want to see this concert that's going on. So I'm wandering the street, and this car just passes me, gets up on the sidewalk in front of me, stops, and this guy gets out of the car, and I'm just like, okay, I've lived in
Am
some
I getting mugged? Yes.
I've lived in some inner city, shitholes in the US. So I'm just like, okay, what am I gonna do if someone's. But I'm ready to do it. And he's like, James Raggi? And I'm like, yeah. Oh my God. And it's like, yeah, he just stopped side of just popped the curb, just driving along randomly. He didn't even know there was a game convention in Gothenburg that weekend. He's just randomly in Gothenburg and sees me walking down the side of the street. And it's like, it's like,
Man, at least you know.
this is a weird life. I'm living a weird life. And that's nice. It's like getting that little bit of taste of what an actual famous person, but you realize if you get more than a little taste, then your life is just not. There's never going to be a normal. So I wouldn't call that glitz and glamour. It's just like feeling good that, yeah, I'm not living your normal 9 to 5 life. There's a lot of downsides and disadvantages to that, but someone I don't know, that I've never met before, just like pulled over on the side of the road, seeing me randomly there, and wants to say hi and thank me for doing the work I've done. And it's like, okay, okay, this is my life. This is my actual real life.
I speaking of reader questions, I do have a question from one of your readers. So he said, "Why did you take out Fireball but leave in Meteor Swarm from the book from the rules?"
uh, um,
That's John, by the way. I'm asking for you. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I didn't think to take out Meteor Swarm is because I have never in my entire life been in a game where Meteor Swarm is used. So it doesn't register to me that that was a thing that I had to be aware of to take out. Like this is like I first published my first version of the rules came out in 2010. So this is over 15 years now, and this is the first time that I've even thought about that or had that brought up as an issue. So it's just
It just
like,
I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, "Oh, I'm interviewing James Raggi. He's read a lot of your stuff." And we're like, "Do you have any questions?" He like panicked for like 3 seconds. He was like, "Why did he take out Fireball, leaving Meteor Swarm?"
yeah.
It
So
was
I didn't
like,
think about it. It didn't
yeah,
stand out
just
to me as like I wasn't. Yeah, because it never been a thing I'd ever thought about ever.
it's for context for anyone else that doesn't know. So Fireball is the best known of the D&D spells. You get it like at a relatively low level. It does a huge explosion. Everybody likes it. Meteor Swarm is the same thing much later down the line where you summon a bunch of comets and you like explode. You Hiroshima everything around you, and naturally nobody plays D&D. Most people don't play D&D that far, so
Yeah, yeah.
it makes sense that Jim didn't think about it. Okay, so before we go, could you? Is there any like parting bits of wisdom or anything else you'd like to share with everybody?
Uh, if you're wanting to do something because you have something that you have something that you want to say, you have something that you want to express. Do it for that reason and not just to participate, just to say, yeah, I'm a published author too. Have something that you do something that is you and that you will be able to be proud of later and isn't just trying to serve a consumer base that is so deluged with products from 5,000 other people already that do the thing you want to do and not the thing you think other people want.
That's pretty good advice. It's pretty solid. And before we go, when's the referee guide coming up?
I knew it. Yeah. Well, I tried another editor at the end of after Gen Con. I made some contacts, and that fell through again. And then I need to deal with this tax thing by the end of the year. That'll be cleared up, and then I can approach someone else and say, yes, I'd be able to pay you to do this. So that's where we are right now. It's this damnedest thing. Once my part was done, which it was unforgivable how long that took. Now it's unforgivable that I can't find someone to like edit the freaking. I've had like 100 books edited. Why is this? But I have a few more contacts, but I got to make sure I can pay them immediately. Before I'm starting to do that recruitment. That should be in another month or two. That'll be cleared up, and I can do that. This is so fucking embarrassing. And there's no excuse. There's no good excuse. It is embarrassing, but it is. I've had it at conventions where people could look at the unedited manuscript that exists. People have seen it, but it's fucking embarrassing, and it is so late. But I I do plan on not dying before that thing is actually in people's hands.
Hey man, Harold Ellison sat on like one of the best anthologies ever and almost didn't come out until he almost died. So it's fine. You can just we can take this out of the interview. You could just say it's my
No,
magnum
no,
opus.
no,
We
no.
can
I
do
deserve
we
no,
can
no.
do
I
another
deserve I deserve all the shit I get for it. I
Oh
deserve
no,
all
no,
the
no.
shit.
I didn't say it. I
But if you want to
initially
tell everybody it's fine, please spread that message too.
I was just thinking we could do another take. We would say referee book would too, and you would just turn around like dramatically and say when it's done. And then just would close the interview.
Already been out. You missed it. What?
By the way, one last thing about this esoteric monster creature generator is out of all the
Random
things you put
esoteric
out.
creature generator
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
classic fantasy role playing games and their modern
I'm
simulacra.
not saying the whole thing, no, but it's an amazing book. You guys should get it, especially if you are running a horror campaign. The first time I got it in my hands and I was going to roll the monster for my players, I made a literal elephant. Like all the rolls came in, it didn't have any powers.
Just an elephant.
And it was just like a fuck it. It just gave it wisdom damage, but it was an elephant.
That one's really good for even normal fantasy games. Your run of the mill tabletop
No,
fantasy.
it's
Well,
great, but it does shine much better when you use it for a horror game. I don't know. I'm more inclined towards this. Like
I think
most.
it works for that because fantasy tends to have their bestiaries be like, I don't know, like naturalistic safari things, like here's the creature, here's the ecology. But the random creature generator makes random creatures that you don't know what it is. So it is going to be inherently more scary than being able to say, oh, a troll, I know what that is, because from the manual there, these are their vulnerabilities and these are the things we got to look out for. And you already know it. It's unknown, therefore scarier. So I see what you're saying, but it was originally designed for average D&D-ish type games. So
It's still pretty solid, and I did enjoy it. Like out of all your stuff, it's like the one thing I keep going back to. So great job on that. So with that, everybody, thank you for listening. Jim, thank you for stopping by. This was great.
thank you.
And everybody, good night and good luck.